We begin by meeting Cynthia, who is in a classroom and soon finds a book. Upon opening it, she sees Larry's name written inside. As she flips through the pages, she comes across a message that says, "Help me, the wolf has got me," and suddenly hears Larry calling for help. Following the voice, she moves toward the source and finds an entity in an office, the one responsible for locking Larry inside a cage. Cynthia informs Larry that he is free to go, saying that the door is open. She reminds him that only he can free himself when Larry shakes his head. The entity warns her not to talk to him, but Cynthia asserts that the entity has no power over Larry and that he just needs to realize that. As Larry attempts to escape the cage, the entity turns on Cynthia, breaking a glass and injuring her. As it begins to crawl toward her, Cynthia assures Larry that she is fine and that they will try again next time. The entity, furious and growling, is ignored by Cynthia, who begins to recite something softly. The next moment, she returns to the real world. Cynthia tells Larry that they are back and reaffirms that he is safe. Noticing the cut on her arm and apologizing, Larry is reassured by Cynthia, who states that it is all right and mentions that their time is up for today, but he can stay as long as he wants. Later, Cynthia asks her daughter, Jordan, if she can find out which gym teachers Larry had between the 4th and 12th grades. Larry asks Jordan if she has tried, and she responds that she is working on it but has not had success yet. She reveals that both her parents have the ability and that they mastered it together, and this is how they met. Then a girl appears at the door, saying she urgently needs to talk to Cynthia. Jordan lets her in and asks if she is with someone, to which the girl explains that her father is on the way but needs to talk to Cynthia before he arrives. Jordan says she can help if she is in danger, but the girl insists that she just needs to talk to Cynthia. Noticing marks on her arms, Jordan asks what happened. However, when the girl remains silent, Jordan explains that she cannot let her talk to Cynthia without first doing an assessment. The girl introduces herself as Riley and claims to be 14 years old, mentioning that a woman named Agatha told her father that Cynthia could help someone like her. Jordan asks what she means, and Riley replies that she sees a dark figure, something like a person but not exactly, that watches her like a hungry creature. Jordan asks if she has talked to the figure, and Riley says it always says the same thing. Jordan then asks if the entity is here now, and Riley nods. Jordan asks if she can point to it, and Riley points to a corner of the room. Jordan then asks where Riley got the scars. With a look of desperation, Riley replies that the entity is right behind her and that she feels its hungry presence, making her realize that something is not right. At that moment, Cynthia appears and freezes in fear upon seeing the entity. Just then, Riley's father, Randall, rushes in and insists that they do not need help. Riley protests, saying that Cynthia can help them, but despite her pleas, he forces her to leave with him. Later, Jordan asks her mother what is going on and if they should call the police. Cynthia responds that they do not need to involve the police, as there is nothing they can do for Riley, not even the police. When Jordan insists that she explain, Cynthia reveals that something terrible is connected to the girl. Jordan argues that just because she saw it does not mean she can help. Cynthia asks if she knows why she screens before seeing any clients. Jordan answers that it is to assess their psychological needs and protect them, and Cynthia adds that it is also to protect others. Jordan says she is the only one who can help the girl, but Cynthia disagrees, stating that she will not get involved with whatever is connected to her. Jordan replies that her father would have helped, and Cynthia says that is why he is no longer there. Later, in a calm conversation with Jordan, Cynthia mentions that what happened today frightened her and reminded her of her father. She explains that this is because the woman he tried to help was connected to something he could not let go of. Jordan responds that this happens because he cared about people, and that is what made him who he was. Cynthia replies that whatever was connected to that girl is not the same kind of situation they dealt with. Jordan retorts that this is even more reason to help her, but Cynthia argues that they should not get involved. She explains that if she tells Riley's father that his daughter has some connection, he will turn against them, just like everyone did before. She asks Jordan if she remembers how bad the situation got, and then adds that after they moved, she promised herself that she would never let that happen again. Cynthia explains that the world believes in science, not in spirits, and that one day, when she can see things as they truly are, she hopes to know when to help and when to protect herself. The next morning, Jordan informs Cynthia that she will meet up with her friends. As soon as Jordan leaves, Cynthia opens her notebook and reveals a sketch of the entity she saw connected to Riley. Next, we see Jordan meeting Agatha and asking if she knows Riley Harris, but Agatha responds that she might. Jordan mentions that Riley said she heard Agatha talking to her father, suggesting that Cynthia might be able to help her. Agatha remembers Randall Harris from Kenilworth, whose wife passed away last year. Jordan expresses concern for the girl, stating that any information Agatha has could be useful. Agatha then shares that she noticed some scars on Riley and that Randall said they were self-inflicted. That is why she gave Cynthia's card to him, even though she did not explain exactly what Cynthia does. Meanwhile, Cynthia talks to John, asking him to keep an eye on a suspect named Doe Ferry. John mentions that she is good at getting intuitions, but never provides a reason or a source. Cynthia asks him to check if there is anything on his record. John finds the record and asks what she wants him to do with it. Cynthia says she knows he is a terrible man and asks him to just observe him. Later, Cynthia searches her books, trying to find information about the entity, but the memories frighten her deeply. Looking at a picture of her husband, she says she has never felt such a strong entity before, and that is why she cannot help Riley. Meanwhile, Jordan meets with Randall, who thanks her for the visit, but insists that his daughter does not need a psychologist, and claims he has the situation under control. Jordan responds that she believes Riley needs someone who can see what she sees. Randall then turns to her and asks what exactly Riley says she sees. Jordan explains that she has an idea of what Riley is going through, but Randall retorts that she does not know his daughter or what they have faced, suggesting that she mind her own business. She asks if she can speak directly to Riley, but Randall says she is not home before going into his workshop. Jordan begins to explore the area around the house and, looking down into the basement, sees Riley down there. Desperate to help, Jordan sneaks into the house and approaches a door, believing it leads to the basement. However, when she opens it, she discovers it is just a closet. Confused, she turns to leave, but hears a voice. Pulling the clothes aside, she finds a secret door behind them. Quickly, Jordan runs to grab a screwdriver and returns to the closet. She uses the screwdriver to open the latch and finally manages to unlock the door. Jordan enters the basement and calls for Riley, saying she is just there to talk. At that moment, she hears a voice coming from behind a door and tries to call her mother, but suddenly the door opens. Riley says that her father does not lock her down there, but that he keeps them locked up. Jordan asks who they are, but receives a call from her mother, and suddenly Randall knocks her down and disconnects the call. At that moment, Agatha calls Cynthia, asking if Jordan had talked to Randall. Cynthia questions who Randall is, and Agatha explains that Jordan stopped by earlier asking about her daughter. Confused, Cynthia asks what daughter and what exactly Jordan said. Agatha replies that Jordan said a girl was at their house the night before and just wanted to talk to her. Meanwhile, Jordan regains consciousness and finds herself tied to a chair, horrified to see another woman tied up next to her. Scared, she screams for help, but Randall enters the room and demands her password. Jordan pleads, saying she just wants to help his daughter, but Randall assures her that no one can, explaining that previous attempts always ended with Child Protective Services trying to take Riley away. Jordan insists that her mother can help, but Randall responds that no one could help Riley, just like no one could help his wife. Jordan promises that they can find out what the entity wants and make it leave them alone. Randall then says that they already know what the entity wants and explains that Riley needs to feed it, or else it will feed on her. Riley approaches Jordan and silently says she is sorry before placing her hand on Jordan's shoulder. Instantly, the entity appears behind Jordan, grabbing her and overwhelming her with immense pain. As soon as Riley takes her hand away, the entity recedes. Randall praises Riley, saying she did a good job and instructs her to go for it. Riley thanks Jordan before leaving. Meanwhile, Cynthia and Agatha are on their way to Randall's house, and Cynthia expresses concern that Jordan might be in trouble. Agatha reads a text message from Jordan saying she is just with her friends. Not convinced, Cynthia notes that this is not typical of her, emphasizing that they had plans. Randall pressures Riley to hurry and put Jordan in the truck. Riley asks if they can check if her mother can help, but Randall asserts that Jordan is different and that people will come looking for them. If they find them, they will take Riley away. Riley grabs a pair of pliers and says she needs to get her backpack. As she returns to the basement, she asks Jordan if Cynthia really saw her. Jordan confirms and promises that if Riley lets her out, she can take her to her mother. Riley responds that Cynthia cannot get her father in trouble, explaining that he is just trying to protect her. She adds that if Cynthia can make her better, then her father can become a good person again. She then hands the pliers to Jordan and says she will try to keep him busy outside. Meanwhile, Randall realizes that Riley has taken the pliers, and Jordan tries to cut the zip tie. However, the pliers slip from her hands. Desperate to free herself, she applies more force and manages to break the zip tie. Then, picking up the pliers again, she frees the woman and rushes to seek help, but Randall confronts her, pointing a gun at her. Jordan tries to convince him that he does not need to do this and that Riley needs help. Just then, Riley runs in, insisting that Cynthia can help them and that Randall cannot keep hurting people and that she does not want to be part of this anymore. Randall orders her to move, but the woman lunges at him, and in the confusion, Riley is shot. At that moment, Jordan's head starts to spin, and after a moment, she sees the horrifying entity right in front of her, which suddenly grabs her face, causing Riley to experience terrifying visions. After a brief period, Jordan regains consciousness and flees the scene. Agatha and Cynthia find Jordan on the road, just outside Randall's house, as he drives away in his truck. Later, John informs Cynthia that Riley's body has been taken to Common Grove Hospital, where the staff who knew her are shaken. He adds that forensics found more remains, indicating that the killer has been active for some time and that Jordan was lucky to escape. Agatha asks if they found Randall, to which John replies that they haven't yet, but they will eventually. He also mentions that Cynthia's intuition about Doe was probably right, informing her that he was brought in for questioning after exhibiting concerning behavior on surveillance footage. Meanwhile, Jordan is questioned about the injuries on her arms and says that Randall attacked her. When asked if this happened after he fired the gun, Jordan confirms and explains that she punched him and escaped. An officer adds that forensics found remains under the woodshed, classifying it as one of the worst crime scenes ever and stating that it is the best lead they have to find Randall. When Jordan looks up, she sees the entity again and begins to scream in terror, but the entity disappears, causing Jordan to state that she needs to go home. As soon as she arrives, Jordan tells Cynthia that she is seeing an entity, but Cynthia replies that she just went through a traumatic experience. Jordan insists that she saw Riley die in her arms, stating that she saw the entity leave Riley and can still feel it. But Cynthia says she would really feel it if she were there. Jordan begs Cynthia to look inside her, but she refuses. Jordan states that she knows Cynthia is afraid to see her father, saying they share the same trauma, and that it does not matter whether she looks or not, it will not stop. Cynthia remains silent, and hurt, and frustrated. Jordan calls her a coward before leaving. Agatha tells Cynthia that a wise woman once said that the only way to overcome fear is to face it. She points out that Cynthia has spent years helping others, but never herself, and that whatever she is afraid to face, she has already survived worse things. Agatha adds that Jordan needs her now. Cynthia asks Agatha to wake her if she has trouble, and warns Jordan that if an entity is connected to her, it will aim for the weakest and most painful parts of the mind. She then touches Jordan's forehead and closes her eyes. The next moment, she finds herself inside Jordan's mind. There, she sees a newspaper clipping that said a therapist had pushed a woman to death, claiming that the victim had a demon inside. Cynthia turns around, closes her eyes, and recites something. Soon, she finds herself outside her house, where she sees young Jordan and asks if she wants to come in. Jordan shakes her head, and Cynthia gently assures her that it is fine. Just then, a man throws a bottle at the window and walks away without saying a word. When Cynthia turns to enter the house, Jordan stops her, but Cynthia reaffirms her, saying it will be all right. She then enters the house, but as she moves toward the stairs, she feels the presence of the entity, which makes her uneasy, and suddenly the entity attacks, causing her arm to burn. Agatha tries to wake her and slaps her to bring her back. Later, Cynthia thanks Agatha for being there and asks if she can stay a little longer, as she needs to do something and does not want Jordan to be alone if she wakes up. Cynthia visits the hospital, where Larry asks what she is doing there. She explains that she needs his help to find information about the doctor who treated a woman with the last name Harris. Larry checks the records and says he remembers Samantha Harris because it was a big event at the hospital, something like a flesh-eating disease. He mentions that Dr. Whitaker was the lead on the case, but he has retired. Cynthia then visits Whitaker, and explains that she has a client who may have a similar illness to Samantha Harris. She asks what he can tell her about Samantha, to which Whitaker replies that she came in with her husband and daughter and deteriorated very quickly. After 2 weeks, her hair fell out, then her teeth and nails. It was as if she were rotting, both inside and out. Cynthia asks if Samantha ever said anything about what she thought it could be, and Whitaker explains that, about 3 weeks later, Samantha became aware of his distress. One night, she asked him to come closer and whispered that something was touching him, and it is there between them, and it is hungry, and she can show him. She extended her hand and told him not to be afraid, stating that it is worse if they are afraid. When she held his hand, Whitaker says he could feel it, as if every part of his body was being pulled toward her. She needed him to understand that this was beyond anything medicine could fix, and it was her way of thanking him for trying. Whitaker then shows Cynthia the marks on his arm, explaining that after that night, he could not stop thinking about that day. Samantha's daughter stayed with her during her last days and held her hand until she passed away. Cynthia asks if he believes there was really something with Samantha, to which Whitaker says he hopes she understands why he cannot answer that directly, but adds that if her client is presenting the same symptoms, it is better for her to be helped by someone like Cynthia than by someone like him. Meanwhile, Jordan has a dream where she finds herself walking toward an attic. As she approaches, the entity whispers the words, "Feed me." Jordan responds, "No," and the entity attacks her, but she abruptly wakes up, realizing it was just a nightmare. Just then, the door to her room creaks open. Agatha wakes up hearing a noise and thinks Cynthia has returned. She looks around, but when she sees no one, she settles back down and starts reading her book. Meanwhile, as Jordan leaves her room looking for her mother, she hears a voice, but when she looks in that direction, no one is there, although the entity is lurking right behind her. Jordan descends the stairs and goes to the kitchen, where she finds the sketch of the entity that Cynthia had drawn. Just then, she hears a noise and sees the entity emerging from behind the refrigerator, but suddenly Randall attacks her. Cynthia returns home and finds Agatha on the floor. She wakes her and asks what happened, to which Agatha, weakly, says that someone has been there. Cynthia runs to check Jordan's room and finds her not there. She bursts out, screaming that Jordan is gone, causing an officer to call for backup. Randall takes the young girl into the woods inside a wooden box. Panicking, she screams for help and manages to open the lid, but Randall tells her not to move and presses a shovel against her neck to silence her. Terrified, Jordan pleads, saying he does not need to do this and that she never wanted Riley to get hurt. Randall responds that this is not about Riley or even about Jordan, but about the entity. He says she held Riley when she died, and now it is inside her. No one will be around when she dies, so the entity will either starve or it will return from wherever it came. Then he closes the lid and holds her while Jordan continues screaming and begging to be let out. Ignoring her screams, Randall throws the box into a grave and starts covering it with dirt. After a moment, he finally buries her. Later, an officer informs John that Randall Harris has turned himself in. When Cynthia sees him, she immediately asks where Jordan is, but Randall remains silent. Cynthia insists that John let her talk to Randall, but he says that this is against protocol. She argues that this is about her daughter, and that in minutes they may discover where Jordan is. If she does not talk to Randall, they may never find her. She repeats that she knows she can do this, but John apologizes and leaves. Meanwhile, Jordan finds the flashlight that had been left in the box and tries to find a way out, but, to her horror, hears the entity's voice and sees it crawling over her, making her scream in terror. John asks the officer what is happening with Doe, and the officer responds that they think they just found the 2 missing Sawyer children from last year. John then returns to Cynthia and tells her that she will not have much time in there. Cynthia asks Randall where Jordan is, but he states that he is not going to hurt anyone else. Cynthia places her fingers on his forehead and begins to recite something, and the next moment she finds herself inside his mind. There, she sees Riley crying over her mother's dead body, while Randall is outside the door. Cynthia closes her eyes again, and after some time, is teleported to the forest, where she sees Randall burying Jordan. Randall turns to her and says he needs to leave his daughter, ordering Cynthia to get out of his head, which forces her to return to reality. Randall asserts that she cannot find Jordan, saying that she has to die. Meanwhile, the entity tells Jordan to feed her while approaching and grabbing her face, beginning to feed on her. Cynthia drives toward the forest, and Agatha asks if they should not call the police to alert them. But Cynthia replies that the police cannot help them. After driving a bit longer, she finally arrives at the location. She and Agatha begin digging into the ground, while the police, following fresh tire tracks, also head to the area. Cynthia finally locates Jordan, but is horrified to see the entity, which disappears the next moment. She tries to wake Jordan and tells Agatha that she is alive but weak. Agatha hears sirens from the police and starts calling for them, but Cynthia stops her, explaining that Jordan does not have much time and that they need to solve this here. She tells Agatha that she needs her to distract the police, as if they separate, Cynthia will not be able to help Jordan. When Agatha goes to distract the police, Cynthia enters Jordan's mind, where she finds her sitting outside the house and tells her to stay there. Cynthia ascends to the attic, where she finds her husband's lifeless body hanging, and at that moment, Jordan also enters the house. Cynthia comes face to face with the entity and, filled with fury, demands that it leave Jordan alone, offering herself in her place. The entity moves toward Cynthia, saying, "Feed me," and as it approaches, it attacks her suddenly. However, Cynthia raises her hand, places her fingers on its forehead, and begins to recite something before the scene cuts abruptly. Next, she experiences terrifying visions and realizes that she is trapped inside the entity's mind. Terrified, she stands up and examines her surroundings, and after some time, finds a spear lying nearby, which she picks up. Trembling, she cautiously advances until she reaches a location where the entity is sitting on its throne. As she approaches, the entity says, "Feed me," to which Cynthia responds that she understands its hunger, and in response, the entity rises from the throne and moves toward her. Jordan also enters the attic and sees her father's lifeless body hanging there, while John finds Cynthia and tries to wake her. Hearing his voice, Cynthia gets distracted, and to her horror, realizes that the entity has disappeared. She begins to look for it, but soon vines emerge from behind the throne, grabbing her and pulling her down. The vines wrap tightly around her arms and legs, while the entity reappears. Jordan arrives and removes Cynthia's hand from the entity's forehead, but she becomes confused to see that it does not work. The entity crawls towards Cynthia, and she pleads to be taken and to leave Jordan alone. But before the entity can feed on Cynthia, Jordan screams and plunges the spear into its head, revealing that she has powers like her mother. Jordan frees Cynthia, who tells her that they need to end this now. They grab nearby weapons and attack the entity together, eventually managing to kill it. As the battle ends, Cynthia pulls Jordan close and comforts her, saying it is over. 6 months later, Cynthia enters Jordan's mind again and asks how she is feeling that day. Jordan nods in response, and Cynthia guides her to the house. When they reach the attic stairs, Cynthia tells Jordan to proceed only if she is ready. Jordan climbs the stairs and finds her father's lifeless body. Cynthia watches as Jordan gently removes the rope from his neck, and in the next moment, her father's body disappears. Cynthia tells Jordan that she is proud of her, stating that now it is her turn to do this for Cynthia. Jordan laughs and responds that she is not yet ready to do what her mother does, so they embrace tightly and continue their lives.